The rumors were true. Nikon's released Firmware 2 for the ZF camera. Let's look at what's new. Okay, I can't sing, so a bad poem will have to do. But this update comes somewhat belatedly, so does this video, 18 months after the ZF's original release. The first 3 updates, for the most part, consisted of bug fixes, so this, as the number 2.0 indicates, is the first major update containing new features and functions. Hi, Ray here. Yeah, I sang off-key even before this latest assault on my voice. So what did we get in the first big update for the Nikon ZF? In this video, I'll run through the highlights. Note that this update warrants a new 60-page technical manual that you can download, and I recommend perusing it to get a more complete description of the individual functions that I can cover here. And I'm going to skip over some changes I see as secondary, but your use case may be different. First, this update adds support for the Nikon Imaging Cloud service, both for stills or video, and that means that you can upload directly from the ZF to the Imaging Cloud via Wi-Fi. For backup purposes, you can store images for up to 30 days on Nikon's cloud and then set up a transfer to whatever you use. In my case, well, that is likely to be a move to my Dropbox. You also have access to imaging recipes, a huge collection of creative presets that you can mix and match. You can also use the Imaging Cloud for future firmware updates. No more messing with memory cards and whatnot. So once you have 2.0 installed, you're all set. You can then update automatically via the cloud. We have support for importing custom picture controls based on flexible color created in NX Studio. I know a lot of people have been asking for this, and Nikon's delivered here. Specific bird recognition has been added to the features the ZF will track in the AF/MF subject detection options, subject detection in the photo shooting menu. So basically, this means the ZF, along with the Z9, Z8, Z52, and ZF2, I think that's the list, can better recognize and track birds, especially if they're smaller in the frame, very fast, or against a competing background. Now, I've noticed improved tracking with my Z cameras that already have specific bird recognition. We can now choose in the photo shooting menu large in the size options available for the secondary slot function if you're shooting JPEG primary and JPEG secondary. And that's welcome for JPEG shooters. There's a number of additions to playback options. So this is the first thing that I took advantage of. You can now choose the border width of the focus point at A10 in the custom settings menu. I don't know about you, but my old eyes are appreciative of this option. So I set mine to 3. For us movie buffs, the ZF inherits the high-res zoom function, so we can use this camera's 4K video resolution to zoom without a zoom lens. So, with resolution set to 1920 by 1080, we can use the multi-selector to zoom in and out, doubles the native fixed focal length with no loss of image quality. In custom settings G7, you can adjust the speed of the zoom, and you can add that to your eye menu if you like. Focus distance information is now available on the focus distance indicator displayed during manual focus. Another eye care improvement, the focusing aid zoom range has been increased from 200% to 400%. That's a welcome addition to help with accurate focusing. Added to the custom settings menu, G18 for stills and G16 for video. For manual focusing, you can cancel out the zoomed in image with a half press of the shutter button, but rather than having to use the zoom out button. I've appreciated that shortcut in the Z52. Glad to have it here. And speaking of zoom again, in this firmware update, there's adaptations for the new Nikon 28 to 135mm f4PZ zoom lens. For non-CPU lenses, data has been expanded, so you can now enter unlimited focal lengths and maximum apertures, and you can name the lens, no more guessing what number you'd assign to what lens. Exposure delay mode is added to the custom settings menu in position D5 for a delay up to 3 seconds after you press the shutter, so handy if you're shooting on a tripod with a slow shutter speed, and you want to make sure that there's no camera shake. Now, you can add enough time after your finger leaves the shutter button before the shutter releases. I've added this function to my iMenu, and my remotes can stay in the drawer. For use in manual mode, a new customization option is added at F2, command dials, exposure settings, so you can add ISO and exposure settings compensation to the front and the rear command dials, so you can bypass the retro dials on the top of the camera or avoid diving into the menus. As usual, there's some bug fixes. I have a hard time saying bug, but I'll leave the changelog up for a moment here if you want to check those out and other stuff that I've stepped over. Now, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but there are some additions I was hoping for that I expressed in my comments when rumors of this update started circulating. I included a note in my full Z52 review, along with notes on the Z8 and Zf Firmware updates, that among a few other improvements brought shutter angle to those cameras. First, I want to make it clear that, well, as I've said before, and it still stands, that Nikon is the new Kaizen king when it comes to releasing transformative and improvements to existing cameras via firmware. But for me, there are a couple of things missing from this update. First, when it comes to movie settings, in particular, I'd hoped we'd see shutter angle. We have that now in the Z8, Z9, and Z6 III, and I think it came stock, shall we say, in the Z52 and the latest Z52, but not here. So, for those of us who use it, we're stuck with setting our shutter speed to the closest 180-degree approximation, say 1/50th of a second for a frame rate of 24 frames per second. And we still don't have the option of locking that shutter speed so it's not knocked out of position. Yes, I occasionally turn the rear command dial instead of the front aperture dial. That's how I have the ZF set up. If you shoot 30 frames per second, you should use the top shutter speed dial to set a shutter speed of 1/60th. That's harder to mess up, but my default is 24 frames per second. It's kind of strange that, like recent firmware for other Z system cameras, accommodations for the power zoom are added, but not what are, to my mind, important video settings. We've had control lock for a while now in the aforementioned cameras, so I'm okay, but for those whose only option is the ZF, and you want to use the camera for video, it has decent video specs, shutter angle and control lock would be nice to have. As it is, I've been shying away from using the ZF for video. I'll choose the Z52 now over the ZF for a lightweight video camera. Oh, and not related to the ZF, but since it just got bird recognition, it'd be nice to have it for the Z6 III. If I recall correctly, bird recognition came first to the Z9 in late 2023, next to the Z8, the Z52 included it, and the Z52 Row 2. I'm pretty confident the Z6 III will be the next to see bird recognition added in the menagerie of animals these cameras can recognize. Okay, enough of the whinging, because it's safe to say the ZF is more of a stills-centric camera, and it's still a joy to use. If I'm looking for simplicity and just the, shall we say, aesthetic experience of shooting with this camera, no complaints. This camera kind of slows me down, and I find that my approach is different. It's definitely the camera that I grab when I hit the streets, the perfect travel and street photography camera. So that's a cursory look at this new update. I'm in fact still exploring the new features and functions, but if I had to pick a couple of highlights, for me, I love that easier to see focus point, the accessible exposure delay, that's great, expanded non-CPU info, because I use a lot of manual lenses with the ZF. Let us know in the comments your favorite, or is there something else that you would have liked to see? If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up, and if this is your first visit to my channel, please do consider subscribing. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss new content. In the meantime, take care, cheers, we'll see you later.